Okay, welcome to the training video, and in this video we're going to be going over kind of an introduction to an online software we use called Investment Dominator. And so before we get into the training video though, I want to let you know that by no means does this training video replace the training material that we give you separately in a Word document. So you should receive that separately. The Word document training material should go over a lot more of the nitpicky details that won't be covered in this video. But the reason why I wanted to make this video is because when it comes to this kind of stuff, usually it's a lot more helpful to actually see what's going on, or at least get the big picture, because it's a lot easier to catch on and grasp this stuff when you can actually see what's happening as opposed to trying to learn the entire process through reading a bunch of text on a Word document and looking at some screenshots. So that's the reason why I'm making this video, is just to supplement that training material in the Word document. So anyways, with that being said, don't rely on this training video for all the details, because all that stuff will be covered in the Word document. So that being said, let's get down to the training. So this right here is what we call Investment Dominator. So this is the online software I was talking about. And so before we get into telling you how this software helps us, I want to give you a little bit of a background as to what we do. So we are real estate investors, and we invest specifically in land. So not houses, but we do land. And so the way we do that is we buy cheap and sell high. So we basically just flip properties. And so the fundamentals of how that works, in a nutshell, is we send out a bunch of letters, to a lot of property owners. We have no idea if these property owners want to sell their properties or they want to hold on to them. We're just sending letters out. And so basically what that letter says is like, hey, I was looking at your area and I was wondering if you were interested in selling your property. And so in response, some of them can actually, whichever owners have expressed interest in actually selling their property, they'll contact us and they'll say like, oh, hey, I'm interested in selling my property to you. How much are you willing to offer? The other option B is they would just decline the offer and just not say a word, and that would pretty much be the end of them. But for those who actually respond and say they're interested in receiving an offer price from us, we then look at the parcel. That's the first time we're actually analyzing these parcels in detail, and then we get to say on whether we actually want to send an offer on their parcel, an offer price for their parcel, or if we decide to decline sending them an offer, which sounds really counterintuitive, because if we're sending out letters expressing interest in buying their properties, you would think that we would buy it as soon as they accepted our letter. But that's not necessarily the case, because we don't actually look at any of these properties until the owner expresses interest in selling his property to us. Then we actually do some of the due diligence and research behind the property to see if we want to buy it. So at that moment we can decide, okay, we'll send an offer of this much to him, or our second option is to just decline it and say, oh, we looked at it and there's some things we don't like about the property, and so we're not willing to send you an offer for this property. So that's the basics of our business in a nutshell. And so how that ties into how Investment Dominator helps us is Investment Dominator makes it very nice because it helps us organize all the data. So we have all the property records that we mail to in this online software. And so what it helps us do is it helps us organize things. And so as you can see, my explanation of our business can be broken down into different stages. Like step 1 is send out letters. Step 2 is property owners respond back. Step 3 is we either send them an offer or decline sending them an offer. So it can kind of be broken down into different stages. So let's refer to actually the Word document that we'll be sending you with the training materials. So I made this image. It kind of shows a very simplistic viewing of how our business works. And so each one of those stages that I was talking about, Investment Dominator assigns kind of like a name to it. So for example, prospect status, that's a status. Mail letter 1, that's a status. Pending preliminary research, that's a status. status. So as you can see, each one of these rows in Investment Dominator represents a separate property. So this is one property, this row 2 is another property, row 3 is another property, row 4 is another property. So as you can see, the second column, it says status. So this is the current status that this property record is in. It just so happens that this entire every row in this page right here is in pending preliminary research status, but that is a status. Okay, so let me go over the basics of the statuses. So prospect status, the records in Investment Dominator, they have to come from somewhere. And so that somewhere that they come from is we actually import these records into Investment Dominator. And before doing anything to these property records, they get imported by default under the prospect status. So once we import records, they automatically become prospect status. This basically means nothing's happened to them. They're just a prospect and we haven't mailed to them. We haven't done anything to them. Next step is to mail them letters. So these are property owners. So once we actually mail all of them letters expressing interest in buying their properties, then those property records get sent to mail letter 1 status. Okay, so once they're in mail letter 1 status, on the second column it'll say mail letter 1 here instead of whatever was there before. Okay, so it goes from prospect to mail letter 1 once we've sent the letters out. Once property owners actually contact us back and say, hey, you know, I am actually interested in selling my property, they'll contact us, and then as soon as they contact us, we'll put their property record into the pending preliminary research status, which means it's pending research. So we haven't done research on the property. Remember, like I said, those people who contact us expressing interest to sell their property, we don't necessarily buy it off the bat. We have to do our research, we have to do our due diligence before we decide, okay, I want to send an offer for this property, or no, I want to decline sending an offer to this property. So their records go into pending preliminary research, and this is the choice that we have. Okay, so this is what I was saying. If we decide to actually send them an offer in the mail, like their property looks good enough for us to actually make an offer on, their property record goes into offer option sent. Okay, you don't have to know what an option is. It's a little more complicated for what you need to know. It basically means we just sent them an offer price in the mail. Option 2 is to decline their parcels. So if we researched the property and said like, oh, hey, this is actually a terrible property, and we actually don't even want to make an offer price on it, then we could always decline it. You don't have to worry about this for now. It's actually explained later on in the Word document. But that's how Investment Dominator breaks up these different stages, these different steps in our business. They assign a certain status name to each stage. Okay, so it helps us organize it because we now know which stage or which status each property record is in. So it's kind of makes everything very sequential and orderly. So that's a big thing that Investment Dominator does to help us out. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. I kind of started from a logged in start, but let's start from the very beginning. So we'll sign in. We'll sign in here, and then you get to this page. Obviously we deal with land deals, so this is probably the only button, if not only, yeah, maybe like probably the only button that you'll be clicking while you're working with us. Okay, so land deals. And so first page you'll come across is find a record. Okay, so find a record basically means what it sounds. You're finding a record. So you know all those rows of property records, these things that I showed you? Okay, so it'd be impossible to try and scroll through and try and find a specific property record, which is why they have these filtering criteria right here. So if I click this, a drop-down menu pops up. And so these are basically different search criteria that I can look for a specific property. You know, I can go by an ID number, I can go by the property's zip code, I can go by first name of the owner, last name of the owner. Like let's say I wanted to look for a guy whose first name was, I don't know, David. Let's pick a generic name because I'm pretty sure there's a David in our system, okay? So it'll pull up all the people whose first name is David, okay? If we go back and we can search basically under all these things. We can search by status, because now you know what a status is. We can search by that. So as you can see, there's prospect, there's mail letter 1, there's pending preliminary research, there's offers sent, all those ones that you have seen over here. Okay, so let's say I was looking for something in the pending preliminary research status. In other words, the status in which people were interested in selling their property to us. So once I select that as a status, I can search, and then all the properties under pending preliminary research come up. Okay, so there's only a couple on here that I want to explain in a little bit more detail. So property ID. So property ID is an ID number for the property record. Okay, so this is something assigned by Investment Dominator. So as soon as you import records into Investment Dominator assigns a property ID number, an identification number for each property record. So each property record only has one ID, and one ID is only associated with one property record. As you can see on this table right here, the property ID is right here in the very first column. And so if you're looking for, property 9039, you can always go to property ID. And let's see. This was Perus Pratsui. Okay, so we'll go property ID is that, and then voila, it'll pull up this guy's record. Okay, so just know that this ID number is only something that we use in Investment Dominator. It's assigned by Investment Dominator, and that's pretty much it. Also, something you might want to know in the future, it's also covered in the Word document. These property ID numbers are also printed on the envelopes that we send to these property owners. Okay, so that makes it really handy, because if they call us, if they call us or contact us saying, "Oh, I have my property, I got your letter in the mail, and I want an offer for it." Well, that could be one of thousands of properties, but as soon as they have this ID number, which is printed on the outside of their envelope and also on the letter that's placed inside the envelope, okay, as soon as they give us that property ID number, we know exactly what to type in to find their property record. Okay, so we can look them up really fast now that they have access to seeing that number on their envelope. Or the letter that goes inside the envelope. Okay, so that's the first concept I want to go over. Second really important one is APN number. APN number is also an ID number, like an identification number, but it's a number that's assigned by the county. So this is a lot bigger than just Investment Dominator. The previous property ID was something just that Investment Dominator assigns to the property, and that's it. The APN number is something anyone would understand. So when we advertise a property that we're trying to sell, we always include the APN number, because people aren't going to know the property ID number because they have no idea what Investment Dominator is. But if we put the APN number in there on our ad when we're selling a property, then they'll know what that is. Okay, so that's a identification number that we'll probably be referring to a lot. So if we talk about a certain property and we say the APN number of that property is such and such, you can search it this way. Okay, that's this number right here. Okay, so it says APN number. Each county has their own format. So this happens to be the format that Fresno County in the state of California uses. Other counties and other states will use different formats. Some will have 4 digits dash, then 3 digits dash, like 5 digits or something like that. Some will have letters. So they come in all different types of formats, but when you hear APN number, at least you know what it is. It's an identification number assigned by the county. Let's see. Okay, so there's a lot of other search criteria that you can look up a property for, but not all these things are necessarily shown on this page right here. Okay, so these pages, these records, these little bits of information, that's not all the information that there is associated with that property record. Okay, so this is kind of just to give you a summarization of what the property's APN number is and the ID number and stuff like that. So this is just the basic summary. To go into more of the details, the property details, you'd have to go to this edit button right here. When you pull up this edit button, there's a lot more details. It talks about caller's first name, last name, owners, if there's a second owner on record, mailing address, property address, latitude, longitude coordinates, what county the property is in, how many acres the property is, what's the property zip code and stuff like that, county assessed value. So if you're ever trying to look up a property under one of those things, that's where it's stored. It's still stored in the property record, but it's stored in this edit section right here. So that's how you would be able to use, that's how you can use all these other things, because what you see right here is not all there is to a property record. Okay, and before I forget to mention this, if you ever find yourself in the edit section of a property record and you make some changes inside here, so let's say you go to the admin notes and you type, uh, this is just a test, okay? So you make a change in here. There's a couple places that you could save these changes. Because you obviously don't want them to get wiped out. You can go to the top of the page and click Update Record up here, or you can go down to the bottom of the page and click Update Record down here. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And the thing you're going to want to look out for is the screen record has been updated. Sign up here because that indicates that your record has been successfully updated. I don't know why sometimes this program can get a little bit glitchy, so even if you click update record, it actually won't update it yet. But once you've seen the screen text up here, that means that the record has actually been saved. Okay, so on to the next topic, which is importing records. So importing records, like I said, we have to import them into Investment Dominator. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any records that existed on this platform. So the way we do that, I actually use the Investment Dominator help training material to actually guide you through the process of importing records. Because I looked at the training material that comes in this help section right here. And by the way, if you ever like wanted to know something about Investment Dominator or think that it's a generic thing that you don't know that maybe you can find out yourself, you could always go to the help section right here. And so by clicking help, there's a couple options that you might find very useful. One is search our user guide, which you can look up keywords here to look up something in their user guide, and they have actually a lot of training material in there. So if you're ever stuck on something, you could always check that. Also, the create a new support ticket. This is kind of like Investment Dominator's support team. They actually answer pretty fast. Usually it's within a few hours. You can ask a question here and stuff like that, and then they'll get back to you with an answer. So if you have a question about how something works or whatever, you could always ask them. Third option is you could always ask us. We've used this system for quite a while, so we kind of know how the ins and outs and the ropes of how everything works. So you can always ask us too, but just to let you know, this help section is there too. So a lot of the importing material that you're going to be trained on is actually in this help section. I actually tell you in the Word document where you can find the training material that tells you how to import new records. But basically, you would go to import right here, and then we upload new property records via an Excel spreadsheet. So once you have an Excel spreadsheet in .csv format, remember that's important, it has to be .csv. Once you upload it in .csv format, in the appropriate format that they allow, there's a specific format, but you'll learn a lot more about that in the Word document training material. You upload the file here, and then you click Upload List. And so Investment Dominator will tell you how many records have been imported, and it will also tell you if there were any records that were not imported because of a certain error. Typically, if there's an error and a record isn't imported, it's because a field was left blank. So for instance, one of the header rows in this Excel spreadsheet, it's like first name, and another header row is last name. Let's say the first name was there, but not the last name, and the cell data for the last name column was blank. It was left empty. Then there would be an error and the property record wouldn't actually be imported into Investment Dominator. So you're going to have to look out for that, because once you try to upload the list, it'll say down below which property records could not be imported. And so you're going to have to go back to that Excel spreadsheet, see if you can make any changes. If not, then you can go ahead and contact us and we'll tell you what to do with it. Sometimes we just delete the record as a whole and import all the rest. And sometimes we try and fix it right there so we can still mail to that person by importing it into the system. So yeah, so that's the basics of how to import. But like I said, follow the Word document that we send you, because it's going to guide you to the training material that Investment Dominator provides, which does a pretty good job in explaining how to do things as far as the importing. Okay. Okay. So the next thing on our list to talk about is, let's say, I don't know, let's just go to here. So I'm going to explain these little checkboxes on the side here. So these things are really useful for a couple different reasons. One is you can highlight parcels. Okay, so highlight basically means the same thing as when you highlight text in a book that you're reading or whatever. It just kind of highlights it and makes it stand out. So if you ever have to refer back to it again in the future, it'll be there waiting for you highlighted. So you can easily pick it out. So let's say I wanted to highlight this one, and this one. I can select those three, and then I can click highlight, and then highlight. The highlight option is selected here, then click confirm. Okay. And what it's going to do is going to take those three property records, it's going to highlight them, but not only is it going to highlight them, it's also going to bump them up to the top of the page. Okay, so since you have them highlighted, Investment Dominator assumes that these records are important, these property records are important, so it places them at the top of the list. So next time you log in, you'll see those right at the top of the list and be able to refer to them whenever you want. Okay, so to unhighlight them, it's the same process except you click unhighlight here, then confirm, and then it'll revert them back to their original state, which is unhighlighted. Second thing you can do with these checkboxes is once you checkbox a few of them, you could always change the property status. Okay, so remember what I said about the statuses: prospect status, next status is mail letter 1 status. As you can see right here, mail letter 1 status. Okay, so if you ever wanted to, let's say we want to select these 4 records and we wanted to change the status, we click on here. Then there will be a drop-down status for where you want to move these 4 land records to. Okay, so let's say we want to move them to mail letter 1, we'd select that and do confirm move. Obviously that's not what we're doing right now because this is just a training video, so I'm not going to click confirm move, but that's what you would do if you wanted to move those records to the next status. Okay, let's see. Oh, also, speaking of changing property record statuses, there's also an alternative way you can do that, and that's by doing it within the property details page, or in other words, the edit section of a property record. So let's say this one property, you wanted to change Thomas Kashak's property to mail letter 1 status. You could always go into his edit section, and one of the first options right here is property record status. From here, there's a drop-down menu, and you could always change it to mail letter 1, and then click update over here or update down here, or whichever one you prefer, and click update, and then his property will be in the next status. But obviously we're not going to do that either. Okay, so next comes generating documents. So what does that mean? So let me go ahead and open up the generate documents tab. Whenever I say generate documents, it's always up here in this upper right hand corner. Click that. Okay, so for the time being, you're not actually going to be worrying about any of these files up here. You're only going to be scrolling down to the very bottom where you see these right here. Okay, so these are where it says custom document templates, because we actually put these ones together. And so basically what this does is each one of these documents, marking letter 1, offer cover letter, sale agreement, decline letter, they're all different things that we have to mail out to property owners. Okay, so let's refer back to our stage list. So from prospect to mail letter 1, remember we have to mail them our initial letter that says we're interested in buying your property. Okay, so that template is actually this one right here. And then also when we send them an offer, so we send them a package, it has the offer contract on there, and it has the offer price and stuff like that. So the template for this document is actually right here. It's actually these two, offer cover letter and sale agreement. Okay, so these two actually go in the same packet when we decide to send an owner an offer in the mail. So the tricky thing about this is that each document template is associated with a specific property status. Okay. Well, first off, something I wanted to explain first is there's these 2 download links. So these 2 download links are associated with marking letter 1. These 2 download links are associated with call for cover letter. These 2 download links are associated with sale agreement, and so on and so forth. The download template right here, that's downloading the template for the letter that goes inside the envelope. and then download envelope is actually the text and printout that goes on top of the envelope itself. So those are two separate things. The only thing you're going to use these for is marketing letter 1 and maybe decline letter. Okay, so marketing letter 1 and decline letter. We're not going to use those for offer cover letter or sale agreement because when we send people an offer in the mail, it comes in a larger envelope. Okay, so we don't have the type of envelopes that you could just easily print out. We do have those envelopes for these two right here, decline letters and marketing letter 1, but these go out in a bigger manila yellow envelope, and so we won't be using the download envelope sections for these two. Okay, so that being said, you know what? Let's try a couple of these. So actually no, let me explain this first. So as I was saying before, each one of these templates is associated with a particular status in Investment Dominator. So for example, marketing letter 1, when we download the template, we want it to only contain the properties that are in the prospect status right here, because the only people we're trying to mail a marketing letter 1 letter to are these records right here, because this is the initial mailing that we're sending out before their property record gets changed to the next status, which is mail letter 1. So in a way, these are kind of linked. So marketing letter 1 is linked to properties in the prospect status. Similarly, the offer cover letter and sale agreement are linked to the properties in pending preliminary research. And so as a result, what happens is that when you download the template gets downloaded, but it populates all the data within each letter with the data from the property records that are in prospect status. Okay, for example, if I was looking for statuses under the prospect status, you can see as the page loads up that these are the properties in the prospect status. First one being property ID 10044. It's Thomas Kashak. His property's in Fresno County, California. APN is this. And so as you can see, if we go back to here and go ahead and download the template for marketing letter 1, this template is going to be merged with the information of the property records in the prospect status. So let's go ahead and download this real quick. So as you can see, it downloads it right here. All right, so now that we have our Word document downloaded, as you can see, Word is telling us that there are a total of 708 pages on this Word document, and so each page represents another property owner that we're mailing to. So this letter right here, it's page 1, it's going to Selvie Mitchell at this address. Their property APN number is this, and their property is in Madera County of the state of California. And so as you can see, if we go to the second page, this one's another property owner, Burdick Carol A. Burdick, going to this address. Property APN is this, and then their parcel happens to also be in Madera, California. So each one of these pages represents a new property owner that we're mailing to. Referring back to what I said about there being 708 pages on this Word document, if we refer back to Investment Dominator, and so this is the list of property records in the prospect status. If we were to select all, you would notice that 708 records have been selected because there's 708 property records in total that are under the prospect status. Okay, let me uncheck that. So let's look at this. So Thomas Kashak is the first one on this list. His ID number is 10044 in the county of Fresno, state of California, and this is APN number. So let's see if we can search up his letter using the APN number. Search under his APN number. Okay, so this is the record that we're looking at in Investment Dominator. Thomas Kashak, this is mailing address 138-54008. If we refer back to here, 138-54008, in the state of California, in the county of Fresno, and his ID number, it was 10044. So like I said, the property ID number goes at the bottom of the letter inside the envelope, which is what this is, and it also goes on the outside corner of the envelope. All right, and so for the sake of time, I went ahead and downloaded a few of these templates just to show you and give you an idea of what each of these things look like. First off is the download envelope. So if you were to download the envelope template, it would look something like this. So as you can see, this looks more like something that would go out in the mail, and that's because it is. So on the front of the envelope, this is what we're going to have printed up on the front of the envelope. So as you can see, it's got our return address up in the upper left-hand corner. It's got their name as well as their address, as well as the property ID number in the corner here. So that's what it looks like when you download the envelope template. These two right here, the offer cover letter as well as the sale agreement, like I said earlier, those go together in a package, and that package goes to the property owners who have their property records in the pending preliminary research status. Okay, so these two go together in a package. When you download the offer cover letter, it's going to look something like this. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, this is using the information of the property records in the pending preliminary research status. So if we were to look at this person's name, this guy's name is Craig Goldstein. If we went back here, I already set it to pending preliminary research. So all these are in pending preliminary research, and this is Craig Goldstein right here. So this is the record that got merged with the offer cover letter template to make this sheet right here. So as you can see, like the APN number for his property is 3069171121. That's what it says here, 3069171121. And then you don't have, this is like the offer price we're sending him for his parcel, and so that gets displayed right here. So as you can see, just now I think you're getting familiar with the concept of merging data. So that's what Investment Dominator does. It takes properties in a specific status type and then merges it with these templates to create the documents that we need to mail out. And lastly, for the, well, not lastly, second to lastly, sale agreement, that looks like this. So as you can see, all the information has been merged into here as well. Person's name, address, price, blah, 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 APN number, and stuff like that. So that's what that looks like, the sale agreement. Take a good look at this right here. Okay, and then lastly is the decline letter, which if we have it downloaded, it's going to look like this. Okay, so this is a letter I said was sent to those who have requested an offer to be mailed to them, but then we researched the property and decided like, no, we don't really want to send an offer for this property, so we're going to decline sending them an offer. So as you can see, if you read this, it just basically says, upon everything considered to me, I've decided to decline presenting you an offer for your parcel, blah, APN number. So yeah, so as you can see, each one of these templates is linked to a specific property record status type. And so as you can see, some of these down here, it says there are no records ready for this template. And what that basically means is, since this document is attached to or linked to property records that are within a certain status, if there's no properties that have that status, then this document is pretty much useless because it has no data to pull. It has no data to merge with the template. So that's why you see right here, it says there are no records ready for this template. Okay, so last and I think final thing that I'm going to talk about in this session is a way to change a lot of the property record statuses. So remember I told you if you want to change a property record status, you could either checkbox it like this and then click change status, or you could go into, actually I don't think it'll work here, but if we go to prospect status. Okay, if we go into the edit section of a property, I told you you could also change it from here. Okay, so here's another way to change the property record status, and this is a way to do it in bulk. So many at a time. In fact, not just many, but all the records in a specific status, you can change those to the next status all in one fell swoop. So for instance, marking letter 1, like I said, this template is linked with the prospect status property records. So if I was to go over to the right here and click bulk update records, it would then take all those property records that are in the property record status and send them to mail letter 1 status. Okay, so I'm not going to do it, but I can click on it once and it'll show you not note this will move these 708 records, because remember we said there were 708 records in the prospect status to mail letter 1 status, and you would click this button if you were certain that's what you wanted to do. But the reason why they set it up that way is because they kind of assume that the process of how you were going to do things is once you've printed out the letter templates to send to these property owners, you would then immediately after that, once you've sent the letters out, click bulk update records, because those property records in the prospect status no longer have to be in that status because they've been mailed out to. So then you would click this button and do a mass shift of all of the records in prospect status to mail letter 1 status. All right, and with that being said, I think that pretty much concludes this brief overview of Investment Dominator. Hopefully that helps you a little bit more. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this doesn't necessarily replace the training material in the Word document that we're going to be sending you to. It just kind of helps supplement it and give you a visual representation of what everything looks like and how to do things. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask us if you have any questions about anything, because I'm pretty sure there's some things that we've probably missed or some unique situations that you might want to ask about. And also don't forget about the help option up here, where you can either search through their training guides or submit a support ticket to get help from them. So I think that's about it for this video, and I guess we'll see you in the next video.